Rachel Holt for NESN.com alongside John Halpin of Fox Sports. John, thanks for joining us.
Anytime, Rachel. How's it going? It's a big week up there. Playoffs, Tom Brady, a lot going on.
It's a big week for us, but it's a big week for everyone because it's also a bye week in week 5, so there's a lot of questions for us. And we have 4 teams that are not playing this week. We have the Seahawks, the Saints, the Chiefs, and the Jaguars. So, John, that means it's waiver wire time. Let's start with the running backs. Who are some running backs that we can target on the waiver wire this week?
I'm going to start by saying there's not a lot. I think in week 2 there were a half dozen. We were saying, hey, wow, this is great. Who am I going to get? This week there's not a lot of those. And the big issue, the 2 guys that you want are both on the Ravens. Terrence West ran for 119 yards on Sunday. He's available in, I think, 85% of FoxSports.com leagues. And Kenneth Dixon, the rookie, who's going to make his debut most likely this weekend, he's available in about 90% of leagues. Now, it looks like there's going to be a committee in favor of West to start. If you had to pick up Dixon for a bye week, it wouldn't be the worst thing. But West is the guy you want this week. But for down the road, they could be looking at a split. Dixon could take that job. It's kind of uncertain how this one's going to develop.
Okay, as far as wide receivers, who can we look at?
I think the guy I want to look at is Quincy Enunwa from the Jets. He's been playing pretty well. He's available in about 74% of FoxSports.com leagues. And Eric Decker, it looks like he's going to be out again this week, and he could be out for a while. They're playing against the Steelers, whose pass defense is not great. There are a bunch of options. Cole Beasley's there. There are a few other guys. But Enunwa's the guy I'd target if I was looking for a wide receiver.
All right, speaking of wide receivers, I have to ask you about one guy who's causing a lot of questions for people at this point. Many fantasy owners picked Odell Beckham Jr. first in the first round, and obviously last night was one of the worst performances of his career. He only had 3 receptions, and not to mention he's becoming a bit of a hothead out there. Not like he wasn't already, but it's becoming a question for fantasy owners because we're not sure if he's going to get penalized, if he's going to get benched, just with all of his emotions that he's been displaying. So if you own Odell Beckham Jr., what's the play here?
The play is to hold if you own Odell Beckham Jr. He's too good, and the Giants are too committed to him doing well. As far as if he doesn't play well, they're not going to be any good. So they're going to get him more involved somehow. I think if I didn't own Odell Beckham, you know what? It sounds ridiculous. You never know who's getting really impatient in your league. If you don't own him, you might want to look to trade and buy low on him a little bit because you might be happy you did.
Right. My question is he a guy that we can trade and feel comfortable with it, or is he just someone that this is a phase and we're going to be okay?
And anybody, I think this is a phase. If anyone has Odell Beckham and wants to trade him to me, I'd be very willing to listen.
Okay. We also have a lot of questions about the quarterbacks. It's been an interesting landscape for all the quarterbacks this season. Some of the guys that we thought are always doing well, not so much their year so far. And some of the younger guys like Carson Wentz, Trevor Siemian, putting up big points. So in terms of QBs that we can target on the waiver wire or maybe even trade for, who would be a good option?
I tell you, waiver wire-wise, this sounds a little crazy, but why not Brian Hoyer? He's playing at the Colts this week, and the Colts just haven't shown any indication that they can stop anybody. Hoyer didn't play too badly against Detroit. He's not a superstar or anything, but he can put up decent fantasy numbers. He has some pretty good receivers on his team. And right now you can get him. If you want him, he's available in your league pretty much. And John Fox was asked about the quarterback situation with the Bears on Monday. And everyone was expecting him to sort of say, well, Jay Cutler is going to go back in there. He said, no, things are fine, and we'll go with the guy who's playing well. So Hoyer's got a shot to play again this week. And like I said, the opponent is pretty friendly for fantasy owners.
Okay, both Carson Palmer and Cam Newton suffering concussions. So if you own either of those 2 guys, what's the play this week?
Well, Carson Palmer's got the tough one because his game is on Thursday. So while the Cardinals are hoping that he'll be back, that's a quick turnaround for a concussion. You might have to expect that they'll be without him. Cam Newton's a different story. And that opposite problem, he's got longer time to recover. But if we get toward the weekend and you hear the words game time decision, that's a tough one for a guy on a Monday. I don't think that you want to start Derek Anderson, his backup, his real life backup, if it comes to the point where Cam doesn't play. I think you'd have to look to a guy like Hoyer or look for someone like Carson Wentz to replace Cam Newton if we don't have good news by Saturday.
Okay, we can't be the New England Sports Network without talking about one quarterback in particular. And of course, this week is the return of Tom Brady. We're all very excited because not only are we seeing angry Brady, which of course is the best kind of Brady, but they're playing the Cleveland Browns. So we're expecting quite the performance when they go after them. As far as what you expect to see out there, what are your expectations?
I think the Patriots are an interesting team because they sort of scheme differently. Their schemes vary against teams based on opponent more than others. They'll go some games where they'll run 8 times and some where they'll run 30 times. This, I think, going back to Brady, the Browns' pass defense, they're not good, but they haven't been terrible. But with that said, Brady's the top quarterback on my board this week. I mean, some of the other top guys, Breeze is off. Aaron, the other top ones don't have great matchups. Brady seems like this is just the perfect spot for him to return.
Okay, what does it mean for the offense moving forward? Obviously, against the Bills, they threw up a goose egg, and you didn't get those big fantasy points you were hoping for. But what does Brady's return do to guys like Edelman or Gronk or Martellus Bennett? Who are you expecting to get the majority of the production now that they see the return of Brady?
Well, I think the Gronk and Edelman owners will finally have reason to stop worrying, because I would think as long as Gronk, we think he's fully healthy, I think those two guys will sort of return to normal. The guy you need to worry about is LeGarrette Blount, because if you can, he's the type of guy, I talked about buying low on Beckham. Blount's the kind of guy to sell high on in fantasy football. Nothing against him. It's just that the first 3 games he carried the ball 20, 25 times. And when Brady was quarterback in the Patriots last year, that just wasn't the case. He might have carried 13, 14, 15 times, but that's a different kind of guy. If you can still sell Blount to someone who thinks he's a top-tier fantasy running back, you might want to do it.
Okay, let's talk matchups for this week. Obviously, as we mentioned, a bye week, so not as many teams playing, but what are some favorable matchups for defenses?
For defenses, I think for defense that you want to pick up, there's not a lot of great ones on the free agent wire. I think, actually, even though the Rams are 3-1, I think the Bills against the Rams aren't a bad one, and they're available in many leagues, so they're a team you might want to go for. Other ones, it depends on those quarterbacks we talked about. I mean, this might sound a little weird, but if Stanton has to play quarterback for the Cardinals, the 49ers actually might not be a bad play at home.
Okay, and last question for you is Survivor Leagues. I'm a loser. I picked the Cardinals last week. I'm regretting everything I've ever done at this point. But if you're in a Survivor League and you're still surviving, what team is looking like a good bet to win this week?
Right now, there's not great ones this week. I think that the Vikings over the Texans would probably be the smarter one. I don't have the point spreads in front of me. The Broncos look pretty good. But there aren't a bunch of slam dunks on the Survivor list this weekend. There's not the 12-point favorite or anything like that. I don't love the Packers against the Giants. I like them, but I don't love them. The Broncos are playing the Falcons. They're a decent team. I think I might go Vikings. And if you're looking to reach, I don't know, Dolphins against the Titans, that's a tough one, but I always like to go with home team. So if you want to dig deeper a little bit and take one more risk, the Dolphins might be it.
Okay, fair enough, John. Well, thank you. And where can we find more from you throughout the week?
You can find all my stuff at foxsports.com/fantasy, and I'm on Twitter at jhalpin37.
All right, we look forward to hearing more from you. Appreciate all the insight.